Oh, how lovely. Baby, a carriage, the whole thing. Excellent. Thank you all for coming. I want to welcome you to the 9/11 Tribute Center presentation of We Were There. My name is Judith Pucci, and I am a Tribute Center walking tour guide. As Lee just mentioned to you in the film, all of us at Tribute are people whose lives have, in different ways, but nonetheless have been heavily impacted by the events of that day. One thing I can tell you is that we are an extremely diverse group of people. We are of different ages, from 17 to 90. We're of different backgrounds. And the diversity among us is so great that in the normal course of life, many of us would never have met. But now we share a powerful bond, and Tribute is our home base. It's where we find support, and it's where we tell our stories about what September 11th was like from the inside. So this afternoon, you're going to be hearing two of these stories. They're going to be told to you by the people who lived the events they will be telling you about. And they are also my fellow Tribute Center guides. So next to me are Cynthia Tumulty Ollemar and Mike Smith. Cynthia Tumulty Ollemar, I practiced that. Mike is a New York City firefighter. He retired soon after September 11th. Before joining the fire department, Mike spent years as a New York City police officer and as an emergency medical technician. If anyone needs any kind of attention, just raise your hand. Mike will take care of you. Cynthia. Cynthia was an elementary school teacher. On September 11th, she was on maternity leave. Her baby daughter, Caroline, was 4 months old, and her older girl, Sarah, was 3. Cynthia's husband, Lance Tumulty. Lance worked for Eurobrokers. Eurobrokers was a financial services firm, and it was on the 84th floor of the South Tower. South Tower is the building that was hit second. Since each of the towers were 110 floors each, that meant that that morning, Lance was very high up in that building. He was, in fact, at the point of impact where the plane was crashed into the tower. We're going to begin with Mike's story, so I'm just going to briefly set the scene for you. The first attack took place that morning. And now this applies to the New York City Fire Department only. When the first attack took place, the night shift was ending and the day shift was beginning. So there was this overlap. That overlap is the reason why hundreds of firefighters rushed down here to the Trade Center, whether they were on duty or off. Mike, am I correct? You were on duty that day? Just going on, so he was coming in and the night shift was leaving. But during the day, believe me, he was very much on duty, as you're going to hear right now. It's all yours.
Afternoon, everybody. This is how my morning started on 9/11. By the time I got out of my emergency vehicle on the West Side Highway, which is not far from this North Tower, I looked up, and I could see the two buildings was like Roman candles. Nothing but fire and debris just pushing out of the tops of these things. And they said, okay, we got to get closer. And I got closer and closer and closer. And I heard these unusual noises. And I just couldn't pinpoint. I've never heard these noises before. And I turned to my partner and I said, what's these noises all about? And he sounded something like boom, boom. And I got closer and closer and closer and kept on louder and louder. And then I realized it was people jumping from the building. I was so distraught, so close, I could see the grimaces on their face as they were falling. I could just like imagine the pain they were going through and the emotion of pushing the air as they were going. And of course, standing there, you can't do anything about it. You just have to do what you're trained and move, and do the best you can to help. So we transversed around the building. I got within I don't know, maybe 100 yards of where I think I needed to be to get into that lobby to get up and help. And as soon as I hit that 100-yard mark, the entire ground shook. It shook so bad, it was like standing next to a freight train. And I said, okay, now what? You look up, you see the building, and the building is pancaking. One floor after the next after the next. And your mind's eye says, wait a second, this can't be happening. And you're just in peril. And you say, run, run, run. But how long do you have? What direction should you go? It took a 110-story building 9 seconds to collapse. By the time I turned and ran, I didn't know at the time I had 9 seconds, but fortunately I'm standing here, I ran in the right direction. So I run. We all run, everybody. I run and run and run, thinking, I don't know, I can't be more than 10 feet away from this thing because I'm running so hard, but it doesn't feel like I'm going anywhere. And it's beautiful, I mean, the most beautiful blue sky you've ever seen. Clear as a bell. You turn, and there it is. Here's that dust cloud. You've all seen it on TV. There's that dust cloud. It tatters me, tatters my back, tatters my legs, tatters my body. That beautiful blue sky is now black as black could be. Close your eyes and run as fast as you can to save your life. And that's what I did. Thinking I got far enough away, of course I didn't. I ran into the side of a parked car. Full blast, out cold, laying in the street. It started to come through after a couple of minutes. I'm heaving now. My lungs are filling with smoke, debris. My palate has got a lot of crust in it. My throat's closing. I could feel myself going. There's no way I was getting out of this thing. I'm in pain. I can't get up anymore. I don't know where to go, what direction to go, and I can't see. And I'm starting to lose consciousness. And of course, I say to myself, oh, man, all right, this is the way it's going to be. It's the way it's going to be. You start to give in. Your mind races. And you say, oh, man, my wife. What's my wife going to do? What are my kids, my son, my daughter? I'm never going to see their children. I'm never going to see them have children or grow. And I'm going as slow could be. And then something unbelievable happened to me. As I gave in, as I gave up, this overwhelming sense of complacency, like you would not believe. It was like the most peaceful feeling one could ever have. It was body and soul zen. Zen like you would just think you were sleeping, the best sleep you ever had, times 10, times 100. And that's the way I felt. It was beautiful. And here I am thinking, okay, it's over for me. Then something happened again. I found out later it was a fireman and a police officer. They grabbed me by the shoulders. They dragged me up the block, one on each end. And I hear the fireman tell the cop, or the cop, the fireman, I didn't know at the time. They said, oh, he's dead, he's dead. And of course, I didn't have the strength to tell him, no, I'm not dead. I'm not dead. But they were able to get me to a safe place. And they got me to a safe place blocks away. I slowly recovered. Took me a little while. By the time I came to, of course, I'm not going to go to the hospital. There's no way. I'm like every good fireman, every good police officer, every good rescue worker. We're going back in. We're going to see what happens. Rescue and recovery. And that's what I tried to do, and that's what I did. However, there was no rescue. It was just recovery. It was like the H-bomb went off in this immediate area. That's why I call it ground zero. There's nothing left. We were walking on top of fire trucks. Didn't even know they were fire trucks anymore. They were squashed. So I got to the point where they relieved me. And they said, Mike, get off the pile. You need to go to they assigned me, what did they assign me to? The temporary morgue. The temporary morgue, that's self-explanatory what the temporary morgue is. But for the next 72 hours, I'm at the temporary morgue. And during that time, I kept saying to myself over and over again, boy, when I get the opportunity, when I get the chance to get home, I'm beelining it right to see my kids. If they're in school, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take them out of school. Wherever they are, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go see my wife. Well, after 72 hours, here I go. I live in Long Island, which is not far from here. I shoot out to the high school. I walk into the door of the high school. The principal says, "What's their names?" No idea who I am, but sees it on my face. My two kids come out, my son, my daughter. They're both in the same school, fortunately. They come out, we hug, we cry, we pray. Just as we're getting in the car, my daughter says to me, "Hey, Dad, you know, just before 9/11, just before I was privy to the information," she said, "I had a dream about you, a daydream, like a premonition." I said, "What was it?" She says, I felt that you were in a dark, dark place. And I knew you were in a lot of pain. I could feel you were in pain." She says, "But I knew you were going to be okay too, Dad. I just knew it." Which was really hard for me to hear at the time, of course. But again, we hug, we cry, we pray. Get into the car, go see Mom. Tell Mom the whole story, of course. And I'm very humbled to tell my story to you guys, but I'm just as humbled to now tell my son's son this story and my daughter's daughter this story. And thank you.
I'm going to give you a number, 343. That is the number of New York City firefighters who died that morning. It was unprecedented. Never before in this history of this city had we ever lost that many firefighters in one day. The fire department was not alone. 23 New York City police officers dead. 37 Port Authority police dead. September 11th stands as the worst loss of first responders in a single event in United States history. As I mentioned to you earlier, Cynthia's husband, Lance, worked high up in the South Tower. By the time the second plane hit, there were already news cameras down here. The two attacks are separated by 17 minutes, that's all. But in those 17 minutes, news cameras were here. That meant that when the South Tower was attacked, it was the only attack that day that was broadcast in real time around the world. So literally billions of people witnessed that attack. Cynthia was one of them.
September 11th was my 3-year-old daughter's first day of preschool. And as I was getting her ready for school that morning and feeding my newborn daughter, my husband Lance called from his office on the 84th floor of the South Tower. He called to tell me that something, maybe a plane, had hit the other tower, but he was fine, he loved me, and he would call me later. So with that, I turned on the TV and I continued getting them ready for the day. As I was walking out the door a little while later, I was just about to step foot into the garage when I heard the news reporter scream. And what she said was, oh my God, it's another plane." And I turned and I looked at that TV at that exact moment that that second plane crashed into the South Tower, and my knees buckled, and they had never done that before in my whole life. I don't know what went through my mind, but I got my daughter, and I put her in the car, and I took her to preschool. And we did all the normal things that you do on the first day of school. We met her teachers, we checked out her classroom, and we took those famous first day of school photos. I excused myself to another room, and I tried to reach my husband, but there was no cell service. A few hours later, we went home, and as we were driving up the driveway, a little voice from the back seat asked, "Mommy, what are all these people doing at our house?" And I did what I think any mom would do under those circumstances. I lied. And I told her that they were all there to celebrate her first day of school. As I got out of the car, there were neighbors, friends, and relatives all wanting to know the same thing. Where was Lance? Had I heard from him, and was he okay? And I didn't know the answer. I can only begin to describe what happened in those next few seconds, minutes, hours, and days as controlled chaos, because everyone who came to my house that day or in the following days took on a different role. My mom's job was to help take care of my newborn. My dad's job was to field the hundreds of phone calls. My best friend made missing posters with Lance's face on them. My girlfriends would take turns taking my daughter out for fun things. My job was to do something I never thought I would have to do at 32 or ever. I had to collect his hairbrush and his toothbrush to get to the chief medical examiner of New York for DNA, and I had to call the dentist to obtain his dental records for identification purposes. My brother-in-laws, Lance's older brothers, they had the most important job. They would wake up every morning and drive a little over an hour into the city, canvass the city in hopes of finding out any information they could about what happened to their baby brother. After a few days, I got a message that they were on their way home and they wanted to have a meeting with me. And I relayed back that I didn't want to have a meeting, that I would know whatever it is that they needed to tell me when I saw my brother-in-law Sean's face. And I was standing in the kitchen that night when Sean came around the corner and my knees buckled. And I knew. He didn't have to tell me. I knew that Lance was not coming home. And with that information, as everyone who was there, and there were a lot of people there, they started to get that information. We all went outside in the back on the patio. It was a beautiful, beautiful night. And we gathered in a circle. And we put our arms around each other. And there was music playing. And we sang along to the music. And these were the words that we sang. For a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Thank you.
Lance died with 60 of his co-workers. As of today, right now, as of today, 41% of everyone who died that morning here at the Trade Center, their remains have not been identified. So that means that that morning, a little over 1,100 people basically did the equivalent of vanishing into thin air. And Lance was one of them. What I'd like to do now, actually what we'd all like to do, is just open this up to you. If you have any questions, please feel free. We're very used to being asked many questions on the tours. Center, the official number is 2,749 people who died here that morning. So for the entire day, it was just shy of 3,000. So the great majority of the people who died that day died here at the World Trade Center. Good question, thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Do you have any side effects?
Fortunately, no. Fortunately, I do not.
You don't?
I do not.
The question was, does Mike have any side effects from that day?
One of the few.
Yeah, really very unusual. One more, if we have anyone else, we have time. Yes, oh good.
Was it scary when you got in the smoke? Like, how hard was it to breathe?
In the, what was the, in the smoke? How hard was the breathe? Very difficult to breathe. As a matter of fact, I tried to put my shirt, like they teach you in training, I tried to put my shirt over my nose and my mouth so I wouldn't be breathing all the dust in. It was very difficult.
Did it help, Mike?
I suspect it did.
Yeah. Just to make sure. kind of late in the day to tell you this, but the question was it difficult for Mike to breathe when he was in the debris cloud? Okay.
Good question.
Oh, good, please. We have one over?
Yeah.
Please.
You talked about when you arrived and when you got out of the truck. I just wonder what message went to the fire stations, because a normal call would be there's a building on fire, there's an accident. What message went to the fire stations that, hey, what did you guys think you were going to deal with?
Did everyone hear the question? Should I repeat it? The question is, on that day, when the attacks were happening here, what was the information that went to the fire department, the particular houses throughout the city? You know, normally one would say there's a fire. How do they define this? Did I capture it correctly? Good.
So at the first report was a small private plane hit one of the buildings. And just that alone is enough to set off a multitude of responses because it was such a large building. But within minutes, as soon as the first companies arrived, it was declared maybe a fourth, fifth, sixth alarm, one of the highest degrees of an alarm that firefighters respond to. And the mantra always in New York City was, we would never lose a building, especially a high-rise, never. And going forward with that mindset, that's why firefighters just knew how many people were in the building, or approximated there was a lot of people in the building, but continually tried to rescue no matter what floor it was on. And as we piled into the building, the more and more firefighters and police officers piled in. By the time we received the evacuation notice, it was too late to walk down because the elevators as you know, elevators don't work during the fire. We're not supposed to get into the elevator anyway. Some firefighters up to 60, 70 floors they ran up to. By the time they got to Mayday to evacuate, it was too late. And to be honest with you, I think if I was on the 60th floor, the 70th floor, and I knew people were up there, still there, regardless of Mayday, anything they said on the radio, I'm not leaving unless I got somebody over my shoulder. And I'm sure that was the mindset of most people.
Thank you both for doing this. Really, I know it's not easy and it's very generous, so thank you for doing it. I would like to thank all of you too. Really, very sincerely, this is not just polite, happy talk. You actually are essential to our storytelling because with you together, we take a piece of that brutal day and we make from it a life-affirming experience. We hope that this experience will enrich your time here at the museum today. So on behalf of Mike and Cynthia, on behalf of me and the Tribute Center, thank you so very much for choosing to spend some of your time with us.